underneath your mandible, right about here, and parotid is wrapped around the ramus of your jaw. And the ramus is like, if you picture a jaw like this, or look back at the skeletons right there, the ramus would be that back curvature, and that's what the parotid's wrapped around. Cool. So let's go look at the esophagus. So this is the esophagus. You guys should all be familiar with that from when we went over the trachea. Pretty straightforward. That'll come down here and empty into the stomach being right here, through the cardiac sphincter. In the stomach, food will get broken down into this stuff. This stuff is known as chyme. It's just digested food. The rigidness in the stomach, that's known as the rugae of mucosa. That's just ridges in your stomach, basically. So that's all that is. The food gets broken down in your stomach through different enzymes and also an acid, hydrochloric acid actually. Hydrochloric acid and those digestive enzymes are expelled into your stomach through gastric glands, and that breaks down the food in your stomach to chyme. And actually that hydrochloric acid would and those enzymes would actually digest your stomach itself if those glands also didn't secrete a viscous mucus that just kind of acts like a buffer between all those, enzymes and all that hydrochloric acid, which allows your stomach to not eat itself, basically, which I think is pretty cool. So food in your stomach, or that chyme, will then enter into the small intestines, which starts right here through what's known as the pyloric sphincter.
I can't see from here.
So here's the pyloric sphincter right here. The first about 10, it'd be right here. So, that's why I meant the whole kidney. I left it out. I'm sorry. Yeah. So this is the ending of the stomach. All that chyme would flow into the small intestines through the pyloric sphincter. Small intestine starts right here. I forgot to mention about the stomach. It's shaped like a kidney bean, as you guys can kind of see and or imagine. This is the lesser curvature of that kidney bean-shaped stomach. This is the greater curvature of the stomach. I bring the lesser and greater curvature up to talk about the omentum. This is the omentum. This is what's known as the greater omentum because it's wrapped around the greater curvature. There's also a lesser omentum right here, wrapped around the lesser curvature. Okay? The omentum wraps around the abdominal organs and kind of holds them in place like a apron, I guess you can imagine. That's the omentum and the greater and lesser curvature leading to the greater and lesser omentum. Okay, now back to the small intestines. Small intestines broken down into three parts: the duodenum, the jejunum, and then the ileum. The duodenum is about 10 inches. It's the first 10 inches. Then after that, the sections get a lot bigger. I think the jejunum is like 2.5, and I believe the ileum is like 3.5 feet, not like inches, feet. So first 10 inches is the duodenum. That's where the chyme enters, flows through the jejunum, and then to the ileum. So this right here is the last bit of the small intestines, and then it enters into the large intestines. The large intestines, it enters from the small intestines into the large intestines through the ileocecal valve. Okay? The first portion, this little first portion, I guess you can say, is the cecum. Let's see if I can see a better one. This one looks a little bit better. Kind of like a little pouch. It's the first portion of the large intestines, known as the cecum. And then your large intestines actually has loops. I mean, I like to refer to them as tracts, but I think your book calls them loops. But anyways, the cecum and the ileocecal valve, the beginning of that large intestines will actually be down here if everything hadn't been, taken out and whatnot. But that it would be in this type of position. And the first loop or tract is known as the ascending loop, which goes up right here. Then there's the transverse loop, cuts across, and then going down is the descending loop. So ascending, transverse, descending. And if you look in your book, it all makes sense. It's literally just a picture that goes like this. It's ascending, transverse, descending. And then it ends in what's known as the sigmoid curve. This one has a nice one. It's S-shaped right here, and that's the sigmoid of the large intestines. That's where it ends. and then it float. Yeah. You see how it kind of curves like that? That's the signaler. Then the food will go through the rectum, from the rectum into into the anus through the anal sphincter, and expelled. Cool. That's the pathway. So let's go back over some other organs. So we're gonna look at the spleen. Somebody hit that mouse for me? We're gonna look at the spleen, the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. This right here is the spleen. It's that thing that can be removed if it needs to be. It holds a large blood reservoir. It filters the blood and holds a large reservoir of blood. So if you ever, really hurt yourself and you lose a lot of blood, it will be replenished from the blood in the spleen. This is the liver. 1, 2, 3, 4 lobes of the liver. The gallbladder is that thing right there. You see? That's the gallbladder. It's in between those lobes, and if I open it up, you can see the whole thing. Everybody see? Okay, so the liver also filters blood. It produces what's known as bile. Bile emulsifies fats, breaks large fats into smaller fats, which increases the surface area, which allows digestive enzymes to break those smaller fats quicker. The gallbladder, when the liver produces all that bile, it sends it to the gallbladder to be stored until that bile needs to be used. I didn't show you the pancreas. This is the pancreas.
The gum. They said it looked like chewed up gum last time.
Oh, yeah, it does. That's the pancreas. That secretes pancreatic enzymes, digestive enzymes, helps break down food. So, yeah, everybody look at this now. So you have your gallbladder here, your liver here, and your pancreas right here. They empty out into the duodenum that bile and the bile and the pancreatic enzymes actually has to get to that chyme to be effective. So it enters through the pancreas, empties out those enzymes into the ampulla, which is this little bulge on the duodenum, and also the gallbladder has bile exit out through the cystic duct, the liver has bile exit out through the hepatic duct. They converge and form the common bile duct. The pancreatic and common bile duct empty into the ampulla, which empties its contents through the duodenal papilla into the duodenum. Okay? So it will be a little hard to see, but let's take a look at it. So here's the pancreas. Does everybody see that little white thing right there? That's the duct. That's the pancreatic duct.
Okay, that little white stringy thing.
Yep, that's the pancreatic duct. This is the gallbladder. And like right there, I don't know if you guys can see it. At the end of the tip of the end of the gallbladder, that would be the cystic duct. And coming from the kidneys would be the hepatic duct. It's really hard to see. You kind of have to look through all this stuff, but the cystic. Yes, I'm sorry. I said the kidneys, didn't I? Coming from the liver would be the hepatic duct. The cystic duct and the hepatic duct would converge to form the common bile duct. And then the common bile duct and the pancreatic duct would empty right about here would be the ampulla, and the ampulla would have the duodenal papilla, which would empty out those enzymes and bile into the duodenum.
Is the ampulla really like a little bulge?
It is. It's just like this little bulge would be right here entering into the...
So if you put your finger over, you would feel it?
Yeah, you can kind of feel it.
Okay.
But yeah, that explains that picture.
Okay.
How everything works. The peritoneum. You remember the parietal and parietal pleura. Well, that was for the thoracic cavity. In the abdominal cavity, it's the same thing, but it's called peritoneum. Visceral around the organs, parietal around the outer layer. Cool. I'll go over some more of that stuff. The whole class. That's everything. Any questions, guys?